3.3 volts. 1.5 volt, we have 1.5 volts. We have 0.78 means 75. 1.8 volt. 0.78. VCCP about 1.05 volt. We have 1.06. This is for LCD VDD. We have 3.3 volt. This is for the backlight. We have 3.3 volt. What about the 19 volt, guys? This triangle means the connector receive the main voltage here. If I check this pin, I should find 19 volt, as you can see. Hi again. I'm going to teach you the 10 key steps to diagnose any laptop motherboard. First, I'm going to teach you how to visually inspect the motherboard. Second, how to check the DC adapter using the multimeter. Third, how to check the power jack and the flexible cable. Fourth, how to check switches or MOSFETs and protection component. Fifth, how to check the 3.3 volt and 5 volt circuit. Sixth, how to check the BIOS, basic input output system. Step number 7, how to check the power switch or on off button. 8, how to check the RAM circuit's voltages. 9, how to check the CPU circuit. Finally, I'm going to teach you how to check the LCD circuit. So stay tuned, do not miss any moment in this video. But please don't forget to subscribe, share and like the video, because your likes motivate me to create more videos for you. Thank you very much, and let's get started. When you get a motherboard, try to visually inspect the motherboard, beginning from the charge circuit like this and pass through all circuits like this. Okay, and also check the back of the motherboard, because more than 50% of failure in motherboards are due to missing components or the major component. That's why the visual inspection is a very important step before doing anything else. So the second step is by checking the adapter. Is the adapter good or not? Is the adapter deliver 19 volt, 15 volt or 12 volt depending on the type of the laptop? Check the adapter. So is the adapter deliver 19 volt or not? Because the adapter deliver 19 volt, I will put the multimeter to 20 volt. The black probe here and the red probe, try to find if you have 19 volt or not. We have 19 volt. So the step number 2 is good. Now you should move on directly to the power jack. This is the power jack. Okay, here we have the power jack. The power jack can cause a dead motherboard. You should always move on to the power jack here. Okay, especially in the back of the power jack. Here we have the back of the power jack. Please always try to check these pins. If you have any dry, we called it a dry hair, guys. If we have a dry hair, means a not connected pin, it could cause a dead motherboard. By the way, there is other motherboard that contain a flexible power jack like this one. So don't forget to check these cables or this extension here. Check the extension, because if there is any cut here, the voltage will not pass to the board. We have the power jack, as you can see. We have the power jack and we have this diode. This diode is near to the power jack. So because we have this diode next to the power jack here, next to the power jack means this is a protection diode. We called it protection diode. Here we have this white mark here, means this is the cathode, and over here we have the anode. If we check the cathode, we should find 19 volt, but let's plug first the adapter. Let me plug the adapter, please. The adapter is plugged right now. This diode should hold 19 volt, because this is a protection diode. Okay, if this diode is failed, so this part here is connected to the ground, this part is connected to the ground, and this part here we have cathode, anode. Always cathode is, you will find a white mark like this. So cathode we have 19 volt, and the anode is connected to the ground. If this protection diode is failed, is shorted, the motherboard will be a dead motherboard. So always when you get a dead motherboard, always try to look for a diode like this one next to the power jack. Okay, next to the power jack. After the charge circuit, the next step is by checking the 3 volt and 5 volt, because 3 volt and 5 volt always is, we called it always, because these two voltages are always present. Once you plug the adapter, you should get the two voltages, 5 volt and 3.3 volts. So let's check. The first inductor we have 5 volt, and 3.3 volt we find 3 volts, so 5 volt circuit is good. After that we should go directly to the BIOS. We should look for the BIOS in the motherboard. Here we have the BIOS. Excuse me guys, here we have the BIOS. Let's put always the black probe in the ground. Do you see the BIOS? This is the BIOS. Always, as I told you before, the BIOS is bigger than the MOSFET. So the BIOS, you should always locate the pin number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Always the pin number 8 of the BIOS should hold 8 volt. Do you see guys? We have here a bold line or a thick line. Do you see? Here in pin number 8 of this BIOS, we have a thick line connected to ceramic capacitor. Here we have ceramic capacitor, 3.3 volt. So always, if you find a thick line connected to a capacitor, means that IC receive the power here. Always. The same for this BIOS, for example, we have the pin number 8 is here. Do you see? We have also here capacitor, we have a thick line. Means we should find here 3.3 volt, as you can see. Okay, so the BIOS, because if you didn't get 3.3 volt in pin number 8 of the BIOS, nothing will work in the motherboard. If this on-off switch doesn't receive 3.3 volts, you cannot power on the motherboard. Even if you press this switch, this is the on-off button. If this button doesn't receive 3.3 volt from this channel, yes, from this channel, 3 volt, 5 volt channel, if you didn't find here 3.3 volt, you cannot switch on the motherboard. So let's check 3.3 volt here. We should find in this button 3.3 volt. Without 3.3 volt, you cannot switch on the laptop. So let's connect again the adapter. Let's connect the adapter. Good, the adapter now is connected. So the motherboard is on, automatically switch on, because the CMOS battery is removed, but I will switch off the motherboard. Now the motherboard is off. Good. So let's always put the black probe in the ground, here or here or here. I repeat these steps for beginners. The beginners matter in my channel, because more than 50% of my followers are beginners. So guys, here we have the switch button, as you can see. Okay, we have the switch button here. If I check here, we have 2 pins here, okay, and 2 other pins in this side. So if I check these pins here, I have 3.3 volts also in this pin. Let's see this pin. No, this pin, yes. So in the other pin here, in this side also should hold 3.3 volt, as you can see. So this pin and this pin is for 3.3 volt, but this pin is for ground. So let's first switch the motherboard. We can switch the motherboard like this by pressing this button like this. The motherboard is on. Let's switch off the motherboard again. Or I can, for guys that find that this switch is not working, you can switch the motherboard by connecting this pin to the ground. If I touch this pin here, do you see? And touch to ground in the same time, do you see? Oh, do you see, guys? Oh, let's switch off again. Okay, this pin is in the ground. If I touch the pin here, nothing not comes on. But if I touch this one like this, on, do you see? So the switch is on. When you press the switch, you shunt or you connect 3.3 volt with the ground. I can even show you, of course, using the multimeter. Let's switch again the multimeter. Let's select 20 volts. Do you see, guys? We have 3.3 volt. But if I press, please pay attention. If I press this switch, please pay attention to the multimeter. Do you see? I will press right now the switch. We have 0 in the multimeter. We have 3.3 volt. Press again. 0 in the multimeter. 3.3 volt. Press again. 0 in the multimeter. So this is how the power switch works. So if the power switch is bad, the motherboard or the laptop will not turn on. So this is number what? Number 7. Let's spot and locate the RAM circuit. We have the RAM. Okay, we have the RAM. For beginner, please pay attention. For beginner, don't forget to check the slot. Please don't forget always to check the slot. In this slot, guys, you're gonna find the model of the RAM. Do you see? We have DDR3. Okay, do you see, guys, DDR3 here? We have DDR3. Means the voltage for this RAM is, we have 1.5 volt, 0.75 volts. Let's check 1.5 volt here and 0.75 volts. Over here we have the RAM circuit. Okay, do you see? Always try to spot this kind of inductor. If we check this inductor, we have 1.5 volt. DDR3 1.5 volt. So we find 1.5 volt in this inductor here. Okay, guys. Now let's move on and look for the VTT here. The VTT for DDR3 is 0.75 volts. So let's check. So for VTT, as I told you before, you can just go and check the network resistors. As you can see, we have network resistor here. If we check this network resistor, we have 0.78 means 75. Okay, all network resistors hold the VTT voltage, as you can see. All network resistors. Here we have another inductor. You see, we should find here 1.8 volt. Let's spot the CPU circuit. Always, as I told you before, try to locate these coils or inductors, the big coils like those. So for CPU, you can find not just one channel, but more channels. The first voltage is about 0.7 volts to 1.5 volts. VCC core. So let's check VCC core. If we check this inductor here, so please pay attention. This inductor here, do you see? We have 0.78. So 0.78, let's check, 0.78. So this voltage is belong to this range interval. Okay? If we check this inductor also, this is the second channel, because for the CPU it could have one channel, two channel or more. We have 0.76. What about the VCCP? We need also to check this voltage. VCCP about 1.05 volt. Let's check here. Always the VCCP, you will find it next to the PCH or the ICH, depending on the type of motherboard you have. So let's check this inductor. We have 1.06. Do you see, guys? 1.06. Okay, and also for this inductor we have 1.05. So it seems that this voltage is to power the PCH. So this voltage, okay, this voltage to power the processor, and this voltage to power the PCH, and this voltage we called it VCCP. This one, VCCP, 1.05 volt for termination. This voltage is for the PCH and the CPU. Without this voltage, the communication, the data transfer will not occur between PCH and the CPU. If you find the VCC core is good and you find that the voltage for PCH or a source bridge is good, and you didn't find this voltage, you didn't find VCCP, if this voltage is missing, you will get a data failure. Nothing will be displayed in the screen because there is no connection between these two chips. There is no data transfer between these two chips. I hope that you understand. Now we are into step number 9. So please guys, don't forget to remember all the steps. Okay, we are now in the CPU circuit. So let's just summarize a little bit. We passed the visual inspection. Adapter is good, power jack is good, input MOSFETs 3 volt 5 volt, BIOS, power switch, RAM circuit, CPU circuit. What's next, guys? Let's check the display circuits, okay, or the LVDs, or let's call it LCD or display circuit. Okay, this is the step number 10, because if all these are good and we have a problem with the display, nothing will be displayed in the screen. If you have all these steps are good, okay, but you have problem with the LCD circuit, nothing will be displayed in the screen. You will get a black screen. Okay guys, so let's check the LCD screen right now. Look for the LCD screen here or circuit depending on the type of the motherboards. Here for this motherboard, do you see we have LCD? Do you see guys, we have LCD 1. This is the LCD connector and this is the LCD circuit. If you check the motherboard and you find all voltages and you didn't get any picture in the screen, first try to use the HDMI connector here, or to use the VGA connector or DVI connector depending on the type of motherboard you have. So if you get the image using the HDMI or other connectors, means 100% you have problem here with the LCD screen. To check this connector, we have two main voltages. We have three main voltages. We have the first voltage, the main voltage is, we called it basically, let's see, the VA, the VN. Okay, in our case here it should be 19 volts. We should also find the LCD VDD about 3.3 volts. Okay, and also we called it the, let's say we called it, yes, enable or the backlight voltage about 3.3 volts. We should find 19 volts, 3.3 volts, 3.3 volts. And of course you can find another voltage for clock, another 3.3 volts for clock. So let's check. We should find, as I told you before, we have 19 volts, first 19 volts, 3.3 volts, 3.3 volts, 3.3 volts. Here, let's check. We have the fuse here. Let's check this fuse. We don't have, oh, I didn't connect the adapter. Now, good. We switch on the motherboard. Let's check the fuse. Here we have fuse. Let's check this fuse again. We have 3.3 volt here, guys. This is for LCD VDD. Okay. We have a resistor here. Let's check. We have 3.3 volt. This is for the backlight. Okay. If you take usually the resistors, as you can see, the resistors like this. Do you see, guys? Like those resistors, this one should hold 3.3 volt. Nothing in this one. We have 3.3 volt. We have 3.3 volt. What about the 19 volt, guys? The 19 volt, do you remember? I told you, always try to locate this triangle. This triangle means the connector receive the main voltage here. If I check this pin, I should find 19 volt, as you can see. Do you see, guys? 19 volt. Why? Because here, always try to locate this triangle. Always the first pin here, we have 19 volts. Means the circuit is good.